that God has given us. This past weekend we went to camp, and it was about together. One of the biggest things they took away, or one of the biggest things they talked about, was being together. And what it meant was that church doesn't have an address, because you are the church. And wherever you go, you should be living as if, and witnessing. And I feel like our youth does a lot of good in that area. We hear a lot about it, and I was sitting back looking, and out of all the churches, because when the kids broke out in their youth, in their groups, small discussions, we got to stay in ours as well. And there was a lot of groups down there from, I think the furthest one out was about 4.5 hours, 5 hours away from us. We had groups as small as what we took to as big as 80 that was there. And one of the things I want to, I'm wanting them to talk, and then I want to kind of finish up. But one of the things I want to do is set the stage on it, is about being together. We had a group, one of the smallest groups down there. And one night, I think it was Saturday night, Daniel was off on the wall stretching, because he wouldn't sit down. I don't understand why. It's like because he had braces on, he couldn't sit down. But he was sitting over there and he was stretching, and he got Jay Lee to come over there. And he recognized this young girl that wasn't even nowhere near our group. Didn't have no part of our group. Never met her before, anything. And he told Jay Lee about it. Jay Lee and him went over and spoke to the young lady. I don't remember her name. They're probably going to talk about her tonight. And they started praying with her. And the next thing you know is the rest of the group come and prayed with this girl that no one knew. That's what it was about, being together. Later that night, or that morning, was it? You got the text from the little girl? Later that night, thanking her for it and how much it meant. So we're going to do things backwards tonight. I'm going to turn them loose, letting them talk, and then I'm going to come up and finish out with it. So we're going to start, usually we start with the girls first, but we're going to go backwards tonight. So we're going to start with Campbell, Micaiah, Moses, Daniel, you said no, Deborah, Kat, and then Jay Lee's going to finish up with the youth, and then I'll step back up. So...
Well, first, thank y'all for supporting us and praying for us as we drove down there. And
pull the mic down, Cameron.
What? So it was cold the whole weekend. Like we got down there, and I think I was wearing pants. I don't know. No, I wasn't wearing shorts, which was out of the normal because I like wearing shorts. And I was cold the whole time we were down there, but we got down there, and we got down there about 7:30, and the first thing we did was to go to the welcome service, and they played a couple games, and then they worshiped, and worship was probably one of my favorite parts of the whole weekend. And I really enjoyed the guys' messages the whole time. And Friday night was cool because we got to do the small group devotion in one of the classrooms that was split from the auditorium. And Jay Lee did the devotion that night. And then Saturday we went out and ate breakfast and froze. And then we then we went in and we did the one thing they do different. It's not really that different, but on Saturday night, and Sunday morning, you go in for 15 minutes, you sing a couple of songs, and then you go to your small group. And our small group was the 12th grade guys. And I want to say we were the smallest small group out of everybody. There was like 23 in our small group, and the small group was really good. We did some really good devotions, and the whole theme of this weekend was together, and like even the small groups and the messages, it's almost like they kind of tied in like right along together. And the guy who actually did the sermons wrote the small group books. And Saturday night was really good. That was their the altar. They had the altar open at the hymn of invitation, which was of course at the end. And it was cool because they played the song and we were worshiping, and there was still a lot of people at the altar, so they ran through just the music for a little bit and then they sang it again. And then everybody went back to their seats, and Sunday morning was cold again. And I forgot. On Saturday they have this thing. Saturday's the only day you have free time, because Friday you come in and you go to do worship and then you go to sleep and then wake up on Saturday. And then Sunday you don't have any free time because you leave at, I want to say you check out at 11:15 or something like that. But on Saturday before they had free time, they had something called track time. And they had like, track time was basically you get together in not even small groups. It's kind of like small groups, but you get together and you do, like, they had improv, flag football, soccer, dodgeball, battle ball, which is dodgeball, and then they had friendship bracelets, and then they get probably 3/4 of the way down the list and we see cornhole, and me, Dwayne, and Daniel all look at each other and nod our heads. And about 1:30 this is when the track time started, so we headed down there and we walked in, and two of the people who led the track times were people from the staff, and we ended up playing against, I don't remember the guys' names, but it was me and Dwayne versus them two, and we lost because they wanted to play bust, which is not the way we play. The way we play is if you go past 21, then you win. But when you play bust, if you go past 21, you have to go back to 15. And that happened probably about 5 times on each team. So that game probably lasted 30 minutes. And by the end, I couldn't count anymore. And then me and Daniel played them. And that game took even longer, but we ended up winning that game. And my head was hurting from counting after that game. But then Sunday, we did the small group and then the worship, and then we left, and then we got to ride the ferry, which is pretty cool. You go through Southport, and then you go to the Southport ferry, and then you can either go to Bald Head Island or you can go up and go to Fort Fisher. So we went to Fort Fisher to go to the aquarium, and it was pretty cool at the aquarium because there was a lot of fish, and that's that's my favorite thing to do is fish. But it was like a kid in a candy store in there, and it was cool because I got to see God's creation too, and got to learn a little bit. And one of the cool things I thought about, there's this kid in our small group, and at the beginning, you go through and you say your name, and then you say what church you go to, and then you say what you want to do for college. And I was probably the second to the last, and he said, I think his name was Colin or something. I don't remember what church he went to. But he's going to NC State for Fish and Wildlife Management, which is the same thing I'm doing. So we'll probably end up running into each other in college. But the whole weekend, it was awesome because the messages they really emphasize what being together is all about, which is what not even youth groups, but it's what churches need and what God's family and even businesses need to be successful. And when we're together, he also tied it into being the body of Christ, which is when you all come together, when you work together, it's like a well-oiled machine. And this weekend was awesome, and thank y'all.
Last weekend was a weekend I will never forget. And I loved it so much that if this was an all year round thing, I'm pretty sure I would beg my parents to move. So first things first, we had to get there. So we all packed up into the car, plural, and I would have to say it wasn't crowded, but it was crowded enough that I felt like I couldn't move because I was sandwiched between a door and my little brother for about 2 hours. That was kind of fun. Then we got there around 7:30-ish. I don't know. I wasn't really paying attention to the time. I was kind of looking out the window the whole entire time, just taking everything in. And we were at the Welcome Center, and we were hoping to get there first or in a good position so we wouldn't have to, because behind us were tons upon tons of church vans and a bunch of other people who were really excited for Caswell, and we're going to Caswell. And oh boy, let's just say we got a good position and we were able to get there and do what we needed to do, and were able to find out everything on Friday, and we were all ready for worship around about 8:30. So we got there to the place they call the Hatch, which I call the sanctuary, because that's, for me, it's what it is. So we went there and we had our first night was a wonderful worship service. I loved it so much. I felt free, like I could worship God in any form of fashion. In a respectful fashion, let's get that clear, but I felt free as if I could worship him in the way I needed to. And then we all sat down and had a large group session, which is for me the sermon, where he would talk about our first thing, which I can't remember, but he was talking about this whole entire weekend, togetherness. So then after that, we were all pretty much exhausted from the car trip, but I was surprised I was awake enough to be awake for the whole entire worship service, because I was exhausted. So we finally went to our little small group session, and Jaylee did a wonderful job at delivering what she wanted, our first small group session, and I personally loved it. Thank you so much, Jaylee. And then after that, we had dinner. That was nice. And then we all went to bed. Thus endeth Friday. So then Saturday, we woke up, went outside in the cold, stood outside for about who knows how long enough to make me think about popsicles in the dead middle of winter, or what it felt like. And we just waited there for breakfast. We fellowshiped with one another a little bit, and I remember there was this one guy who, like right before you would enter the cafeteria, would randomly start singing Christmas songs out of nowhere, yell random stuff, and to get you pumped and ready for the worship service. I can't say much about that, let's just be honest. It was weird. It was exciting. Let's just say there was a lot of mixed emotions about that, but I thank him for it, because I feel like a lot of people need that, especially when you have to wake up at 7 a.m. so you can get in line for breakfast on a Saturday morning. So after breakfast, we went to the Hatch, or the sanctuary again, for another worship service that was absolutely wonderful. And then we broke off into our small groups. Now, I was put in with the 10th grade boys, a very interesting group, let's just be honest. And I got, my teacher, I had 2 people who were in the band who were leading worship, and I had a lot of fun learning from them. I learned so much from them, and they were trying to talk about togetherness, but a lot of the time they were kind of like me when I'm trying to teach something. I end up throwing in something else that just pops into my mind and end up going in depth about that. And one thing that stuck out was, it was like Saturday night. I know I shifted time really quickly, but they were showing us ways to witness to people, and one of the ways they showed was using 3 circles. Now, this might sound familiar to some. It was new to me when I heard it, and I thought I'd share it with you guys. So the first circle, simply put, there was just one circle, perfection. This was to represent how God made everything perfect. And then our second circle was to represent brokenness. So they would draw a little circle and put like some squiggly lines to show that our world was broken. And they said that because Adam and Eve sinned and we've all sinned, our world is broken. And then he like pulled out some verses like Romans 3:23, Romans 3:10, and verses like that. And then the third circle he put down, which was my personal favorite, was the one, he drew a circle and he put a cross. And he said, in order for us to go back to that final circle, that first circle, someone had to take our place and die for us. Because if we were to do it ourselves, we can't do it because we're imperfect. So God sent his son in order to pay for our sins so that we could be saved and be reunited with God. And that was one of the things that I pulled out this whole entire weekend. And I've had so much fun. There was a lot of fun things to do, especially track times. The thing I went to for track times was improv. And what improv simply is just acting where people don't give you a script. You're just given a scenario and you're supposed to do something. So the first game we did was this little, I'm not sure how to put it, but it was like a little game show of which I was the host for some random reason. It was pretty funny. Wasn't my greatest performance, but it was funny. And then after that, we played some other games that were really fun, and I loved that. I wish I could do that all the time sometimes. And then after that, we had free time, and I explored the caverns, not the caverns, what's the word? Oh yeah, the fort, because where we were, it was a fort. It was like broken down. I've enjoyed doing that with the Locklear family. It was so much fun. I felt closer to them that time, and I enjoyed it. And then we went to Pizza Hut, and Moses gave another small group session, and he did a pretty good job. Not pretty good job, he did a very good job. Let me just correct that. And Moses, keep doing it because you'll be doing that a lot. Just to let you know. And then after that, we went back to the Hatch for another worship service. And I loved the other one, because we had an altar call, and there were tons of people who came to the altar. I didn't come to the altar, but I was praying in my seat for a situation that I was going through. And when we left, I felt different on that night. I felt different. And then after that, we had our little separate ways, and then eventually ended up back into bed, ready for Sunday. Sunday was the last day, and also, I have to be honest, the worst day, because it was the last day, and I had so much fun, I didn't want to leave. And I personally felt like the worship service kind of just tied everything up together in a nice little bow and said, this is what we want you to take home. And they simply said, we want you to feel not just more unified as a youth group, but more unified as a church. That is something I pulled out that whole entire weekend. Now, when I got home Sunday night, I was preparing for this speech, and the Lord brought something to me in a very weird way, because I noticed that during the meal times, normally when I would be chatting my head off and annoying people just because I can't stop talking, I was quiet and just kind of observed from a different, observing our group's interactions. And I felt like the relationship the youth have was somewhat similar to how my sister and I kind of view each other. We've got each other's backs, but we don't look like it all the time. We do, and we believe, and we are strong together. It's just, we don't always look like it because, I'm not sure what their situation is. They might see each other more than once a week. Deborah and I see each other every day, so we're like, I trust you, I know I can rely on you, I got your back, but let's see we gotta do something. And that was kind of shocking for me, because I personally thought this trip was going to be, for me, getting more united with the youth group. But instead, it kind of opened my eye to a new perspective of how to view this youth group that we have. And I'm going to go and tell you, they are unified. They are together. They are strong. They have each other's backs when they need each other. And I would say we have taken our first step, and I believe you're going to take more steps to going stronger and stronger every day. Thank you. Yes? Wait, what? No. I'm actually quite fine. I'm actually quite fine. Let there go, buddy.
Honestly, I wish I had one of those handheld microphones so I could move because that's what I usually do. But anyways, I found Caswell quite fun and filled with a fellowship, and I like the concept of togetherness. And oh my goodness, I am not prepared for this all the way, but I'm going to try the best I could. So, when we were driving there, and I was so cramped in there, I had to stay frozen. I was like given a sleep paralysis kind of sort of, until when I got out, I was like, finally I could breathe. Thank you, Jesus, I can breathe. Thank you so much. So apparently, but I was still not tired, even though it was quite late. I was still filled with the energy and the excitement I had. And when we got to the worship, I noticed that many of the other teenagers from other groups and other churches were in the spirit. They were really motivated, and also the singing was really great. And when we and I think the speaker's fine. I think the speaker's pretty good. And also I'm trying to remember here. But my favorite part was the singing. Thank you so much, Micaiah. But anyways, it's the song. There were some songs that I knew and some songs I didn't know. And sadly, I cannot remember all of them at the time, but I'll have to find something. But anyways, and also, Jaylee did a really great job at the devotions. And then we had dinner, like the rituals of every day. And then we went to bed. I had to find myself singing or talking to myself to sleep because I wasn't tired as much. But anyways, I felt this, like, we get it. Anyways, but the next day, and I remember that this guy who would just start getting people ready for the day. I mean, he just start yelling, just talking about, I think he might start singing random songs and whatnot. And he said it was a little crazy. In my mind, I'm like, ooh boy, he's my, I gotta know this guy more because I like him. But anyways, but the breakfast was good overall, and sadly I couldn't get extras because I never do. I didn't know that back then, but and we went to the small group devotions, and we learned about love, and not in a gay way. Thank you, Dalen. In my mind, I wanted to bring it up, but whatever. Anyways, I think the teachers did a really great job, even though at the first 5 minutes when I went to the 7th grade class, most of the children were throwing pens and something, and then it probably took us 15 to 20 minutes to get us to the lesson. So, and once again, oh my goodness, really? I'm halfway done here. But anyways, for track times, I went to the improv, and I believe Kaya already explained it to all of you, and I found that very fun. I'm like, can we do this tomorrow? Can we just do this tomorrow? But anyways, that was the best Saturday I've ever had in November so far. And also, I learned that we should stay unified as a church and unified as one body, and also the second thing I remembered is to never go fishing at a cold November night. Oh my goodness. And that is all. I wish I had more to explain, but that is all. Thank you. Good night.
So the ride there, it was long, miserable, because I had to put up with loudmouths talking to me. I tried to put my headphones in. He was still louder than my headphones. But overall, we had a safe trip there. We get there and check in, and then we get these, I don't know, they're kind of like barrack type deals. The girls at the bottom, and the boys are all the way up top. Those stairs try to kill me. I'm hopping all along on my crutches. Campbell wouldn't help me. Campbell tried to throw me down the steps one time. Love, man. And then we get in the room. And then there's bunk beds. And of course I got the bottom. And somehow Dalen got the top bunk. And I was like, alright, ain't no big deal. We wake up the next morning. His foot was in my face. That was pretty funny. But we keep going, and then we go to worship. It's pretty good. And then we go into small groups. And small groups is where I kind of had the most fun at, because we had a drummer, and his energy was like, wow. It was like, he was 22, and he had an energy of like a 15-year-old boy lit on fire for God. And it was so amazing. And we talked about Unified and how he went through his church. His dad's a pastor somewhere in Tennessee. And he's going through college classes here in North Carolina. But it was amazing of how he's playing Unified, and it really stuck with me. And I was just thinking about how our youth group is real unified. We're like real tight. And so we break up, and then we do a little thing, and then we go back to worship. And it was amazing seeing the youth group go forward and have fun and praise the Lord. And then I gotta cheat for a minute. That's how I passed school. I cheated off of Campbell's paper. Yeah, no, he cheated off me. And then Saturday, we woke up, had breakfast, went to small group, another amazing lesson, and then worship. And then this one guy, didn't really recognize him until kind of at the end, but he loves to hang in trees and does his devotions. And it was kind of crazy. I was like, that's just crazy. And he was in my group, and he was talking about how he does it. And his family is partly up in heaven, he was saying. It kind of confused me. And that's one way he kind of gets in trees, because they like to climb, and he thinks he's closer to them, and that's how he does his devotion. And it kind of hit me like, wow, that's pretty cool. Like, how blessed I am to have my parents, and unfortunately Elijah, but I have him. And then we go to worship, have fun there, and then we break into, what's that thing called again? Yeah, I already said that. Where we played cornhole. Track time. And these kids were talking smack about how good they was and all that, because they beat Dad and Campbell. And then me and Campbell get up there, and then I swear that was the longest game of cornhole I've ever played in my life. They thought me and Campbell was professionals at one time. No, we ain't professionals. And then our free time, we went to the pier, got some bait, and I got me some warm clothes too. And then we go out late at night and start fishing. Well, my boy Moses caught him one. Very proud of him. Me and Campbell lost one. That's the point. We'll get him next time, buddy. Yes, sir. And then what really hit me the most is that worship, that nighttime. Was it nighttime? This girl, he opens up the altar, and this girl walks up there with the group. I don't know, like 5 of them, and then they all separate. But she sits right where I was sitting. And at the time before, I had no problem sitting in a pew, and I was just getting uncomfortable the whole time. I was like, all right, maybe I just need to get up and walk. So I got up and walked, and then I sat in the, walked around, and then I just found me some AC, and I kind of stayed near it for the longest and listened. Then I moved up forward where the group was at, and I noticed that they walked up, and then she just walks back where I was sitting, and she's just crying her eyes out. And then it gets worse and worse and worse. I was like, you know what? Let's pray for her. And then I get Jay, and then we pray for her. And then it was like amazing how God worked. Because like ever since then, she was like, stop crying. Everybody's having fun. She's getting into it. I'm really proud for Jay Lee for stepping up and helping me. And wow, thank you, Jay Lee. And then we went to Sunday and then met Dylan again. Dylan was the crazy one out in shorts and what, a pinata or something? Yes. And he's standing on the rail singing Christmas songs and then doing crazy stuff. He's out there. Then we get on the ferry and then we get to the aquarium. And I swear, me and Campbell tried to sneak our fishing poles in there, but Dad wouldn't let us. So that's really it. That's basically. Thank you for your support, and thank you.
I'm pretty sure this is all I wore last weekend, and I was cold. Yes, it was cold, and then you're by the ocean, and the wind is blowing. Yeah, okay. My wow moment was the worship service. The energy there was not what I expected. I expected something like the Sunday school stare. And you would probably know if you went as a teenager. You go into Sunday school, and the teacher asks something like, what does it mean to be unified? And everyone just stares at each other. And then this one kid, this one brave soul, answers the question. You stare at that kid like you're the preacher's kid. But it was not like that. Like, it was like youth explosion. I'm like, what? Did we go back in time or something? People were screaming their heads off. There was clapping. There was singing. It was crazy. And the worship was very moving. The music was so loud, you could actually feel it in the pews, and it was so emphatic. It was really, really good. And the atmosphere just plunges you into this spirit of worship, where it's nothing but you and God, and you're just worshiping Him for how great He is. The speaker was really great, I thought. He really touched some points on unity that I thought were really important. And what I got out of it was that, we're all many parts of the body of Christ. We're all flawed people. But in our weaknesses, God increases. And He's the glue that makes us one. And that is the church. And I had a really great weekend. Thank you.
Hello. Okay, so I'd first like to just thank you guys for praying for us this whole past weekend as we went there and safely got there, and just thank you. Everybody pretty much explained to you what was going on, but I just wanted to point out the points that really touched me this weekend. Our whole theme was about together. This was our little booklet we got and did all our messages and stuff in. But when I say we were together, I mean we were together. We were all crammed into Rachel's car together. Going down the road, all of us got in there. The message that we really got out of it was that no matter what, we all need to stick together, because being a Christian is not about being a single person going through it. You all need to be together as one. And I think that really, really, really meant something to all of us. And this past weekend, we all really got in our heads that we need to stick together, because without each other, we really aren't anything. And I think one of the biggest moments was the music, to be honest, because it was so, the energy of it was just, you could feel it going through your body. It was that powerful. And me and Jaylee went up there a lot and sung. And just the energy of people, it was just awesome. And I really love you guys a lot. Thank you.
I was actually hoping there was a step stool up here, but I guess there's not. So let me give you a little pregame. So the weekend before Caswell, I was in Brown Mountain Beach. It's in the mountains in North Carolina. It was freezing, and I wore a dress to a wedding outside. I was like, oh, I'm ready for Caswell. I'm ready for the warm weather. No. It was freezing. So then we get there. Well, no, before we left, we all met at Dwayne's house. And I have this fear of chickens. Well, no, it's not even just chicken. It's just birds in general. And so, walk out of Dwayne's house, and there's a chicken on the porch. And I'm like, oh, I'm just going to ease my way around it. So I go over, and I jump off the porch, and I'm running around, and Elijah grabs the chicken, and he's chasing me around the house with the chicken. I was so scared. I'm crying. I'm like, stop, leave me alone. I run between Mom and the car, and I'm like this, crying into her. And I'm like, oh, this weekend's going to be fun. So then we get in the car, and we're all crammed in there. Well, I wasn't crammed. I had my area. There was just a fishing pole around my head. That was fun. So then Friday we got there, and we got there pretty late, and so we didn't really do any lesson or anything. We went and we did welcoming. We got our little booklet, and then I gave a lesson which I promise I had it planned out. I had it written in this notebook, all written out. I forgot my lesson at home, so I had to wing it. And I thought I did pretty good. They said I did pretty good, so yay, Jaylee. And then we had a lesson in that hatch, which I called it the sanctuary. It's where all of the groups went, and there were so many people. I knew some people. They went to my school and Union Pines and everything. And then the lesson Friday was, who do you say Jesus is? And that past week, I'd been sick with the stomach bug, and I had a lot of like family and friendship and relationship things going on. And I was like, oh, please, I just want to get through this weekend. And so we got there, and then we got back from our lesson, and I rushed to take a shower, and I'm looking at the rooms and everything. And we were in this little hallway, and it was like a hallway, and then our room, and then another room. And then there was a little bathroom connecting 2 hallways. I'm like, oh, we got a bathroom to ourselves. Nope. There was like these little girls, and they were like 12 and 13, and I'm like, oh, Girl Scouts. Yay. We got to share a bathroom with the Girl Scouts. Oh, no. So I called them Girl Scouts all weekend. And then that was pretty much the end of Friday. And then Saturday, I don't know, my notes are scattered. Oh, we had small group, and they split us between gender and in your grade. Yeah, your grade. I'm the only sophomore girl in the youth group, so I got put by myself. I was so scared. I was like, oh my goodness, I'm here by myself. I didn't know anyone. I met this girl. She was also by herself. Her name was Mary Ashlyn, I think? Yeah. And I was talking about how our youth group goes to Guatemala, and she's like, oh, that's cool. I'm going out of country. And she told me where she's going, but it was a really weird name. I just know it's like in South Africa. And so I prayed with her that night. And, well, that was that morning. It was Saturday morning. And in our small group, we talked about togetherness, how the people of the church make up the church, which is the body of the church. And if one part is struggling or isn't thriving, then the rest of the church isn't, because one piece is always only as good as the rest. And that one hit pretty hard. And so then Saturday, we went back and we had free time and everything. Catherine and I beat these 2 boys in cornhole. It was amazing. The best thing I've ever done. No, it wasn't our youth group. It was someone else. And so then we went and ate. And then we had night worship. And it was so good. I loved the music so much. It was just like this place of like a sense of home. Like when you were together, you were just like worshiping Jesus. You were all together. Like nothing could like ruin that moment. Like of you all being there together, like just worshiping and singing your hearts out. Every night, I went up there and I sang like with the rest of them, and I threw my hands up, and no one else in the youth group wanted to go with me. And I was like, fine, I'm gonna go by myself. So I marched my happy self up there, and then Catherine came, and then Campbell came, and then that was it. So we just worshiped by, I guess Dalen went too. But yeah, we worshiped all together. And then Saturday, it was like our come to Jesus moment, like where he like gave a lesson and like you could accept Jesus into your hearts if you weren't saved, and that's always my favorite part. And so I was sitting there and I was like praying to myself, and I was asking Jesus for guidance and strength and help to get through everything I was going through personally. And so I'm sitting at the end of my pew and I'm like bawling my eyes out, and I'm just like praying. And then Catherine hugged me, and then she held my hand, and then Daniel's like, Jay. And I could hear him, but I ain't answering him. I'm over there praising Jesus. Leave me alone. So then Catherine hits me, and I was like, and then she goes, Daniel wants you. So I peeked my head through the pew, and he's like, and I'm like, And then he's like, and so I'm like, gotta fix myself. So I'm fixing my face and everything, and I go through everybody in the pew, because I'm the last one, and then Daniel's all the way over here. So I walk through everybody, and then he's like, there's this girl I want you to pray with. And I was like, why can't you pray with her? And he was like, because I'm a dude. I don't want to pray by a female by myself. I need your help. And I was like, all right. As I'm bawling my eyes out still, like I'm steadily crying. I'm like, this is going to make me look so bad. So I go, and I'm like standing near Jesus. I'm standing near Daniel. And he's like, that girl right there. And so it's our pew, another pew, and then another pew. And I was like, which girl? There's two of them. They were like behind each other. And he's like, that one behind us. So I go to this one girl, like she was also crying. I go to this one girl, and I'm like, are you okay? And I put my hand on her back, and Daniel goes, no, Jay, not that one, the other one. So I'm like, oh my gosh. And I'm like, are you okay? And she's like, yeah. And she's like crying. And then I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to go pray with this other girl. So I hop back a pew and do the same thing. And I'm like, are you okay? And she goes, and she starts crying like hysterically. And I'm like, you're not okay. You're not okay. So then I was like, do you mind if we pray with you? And she was like, so then Daniel and I stand near her, and we do a little prayer with her. And I was like, I don't know you. I don't know your name. I don't know where you're from. I was like, but I pray that God gives you strength to get through everything that you're going through. I may not know what it is, but God does. And I pray that He relieves you of your pain. And I'll never forget that prayer. And so after that, she thanked me, and Daniel went his separate way. And I didn't want to just leave her, so I'm just standing there, singing my happy songs, still crying. And so I hop back. I go up 2 pews, and I sit with my mom. And I'm like laying on my mom. And then after service, Mom goes, did you get her name? And I was like, no. She's like, did you get her phone number? And I was like, no. She said, you know what church she goes to? I was like, Mom, I didn't do anything. I just asked her if she was okay, and I prayed with her. And she goes, you should probably give her your name and phone number. And I was like, a stranger? I don't want to give my phone number out. So I get Mom's paper, and I write down my name and my phone number, and I'm like, if you ever need someone to pray with or talk to, here's my number, and this is my name, and I'll pray with you. And so then she texted me. But I didn't get it until Sunday morning when I was in my group, and I'm like, who is texting me? I am in church right now. And her name was Abby. And she said, hey, I just wanted to text you and tell you that the little prayer you told me helped me so much. So I thought I would go ahead and tell you thank you so much for helping me change my life just this very night. And she put her name at the end. She put 2 red hearts. And I said, I'm so glad I could help. If there's any specific way I can pray for you, please let me know. And she didn't ever text me back, but I felt so good. Like, I was sitting in my small group Sunday, and I just started crying, like, once I seen her message. And then everyone in my small group was, like, looking at me, and they were like, are you okay? And I was like, yeah. And there were a whole bunch of Southerners. Like, I thought I was Southern. They were so Southern. They had the most Southern accent I have ever heard in my life. And so they're like, are you okay? And I'm like, yes, ma'am. And so then Sunday, I don't remember much from Sunday. I just remember I had my small group, and then that happened. Oh, in our small group, we were talking about how our Caswell high would go away, and how, like, once you left Caswell, you wouldn't, like, feel the same. Like, you wouldn't forget what happened, but you, like, wouldn't feel the same about anything as you did that weekend. They lied to me. I have felt on top of the world ever since I left Caswell. Like, I've been so happy. I left Sunday. I was in the car, and I was telling Mom, I was like, I'm going to make a Jesus playlist. She goes, what? I said, I'm going to make a Jesus playlist. So I started getting all these songs that we sang during worship, and I put them on my playlist. And now I listen to my playlist every day, and it seems to be the only thing that gets me through the day and gives me strength. So I want to say thank you for praying with us that night, the Wednesday night before we left, and praying for us while we were there. It truly did help, and we could feel your prayers and thoughts. So thank you so much.
I made it this time. I didn't trip. We're about done. I just have a few things I want to point out. This trip was amazing. We didn't allow no visitors to go with us this time. And the reason why is because it's about being together. And what we needed our youth to do is grow together without having a bunch of visitors on top of them and friends. Friends is great, don't get me wrong. But some of the things I wanted to point out is Campbell, Gabe, and Daniel's leaving us. They're seniors. And Gabe didn't get to go because he had a school activity going on. But Daniel and Gabe, Campbell and Daniel, I'm looking at you, Gabe, actually really made sure that Micaiah and Moses and Dalen was set and ready to go. They really filled in the places. And then Micaiah really amazed me when he made sure that the day that his brother was to give devotional was ready. So they really leaned on and they really did what together was about. And then I watched, I called her Nevaeh, Jay Lee from far, and the leadership that she put in. And boy, it really warmed my heart this weekend watching this group standing back, not having as much, because we didn't get to go to classes with them or anything. We kind of had to sit back and do our own classes, but watching them take leadership and not goof around. The instructor made a comment, or the pastor made a comment about Bibles. And I wrote it down here. 94% of youth now does not use a Bible. They use some type of electronics. 87% of adults has changed to electronics. And the bad thing about it is they actually using electronics is taken away from learning. And when that was said, every one of our youth held their Bibles up. They didn't use their phones that weekend. They use them here occasionally, yes. But that weekend, they had their Bibles with them, which was amazing. And there was a lot. You know, things just went to electronics in a lot of ways. So we have to keep our youth in prayer for that. Another thing that I wanted to pull out is I think Jay Lee made a comment, or Deborah, one of them, made a comment about, the church, how they're the church and being together. And, we're stressing the part of, even before we voted David in today, how it's important as them as being a youth, doing their part in the church and picking up and going. And I think this weekend they've seen the importance of every tool that a church has and why it's important to fill those roles and to work it and to do it. And it was amazing listening to them. Jay Lee did a great job Friday night on her devotional, even though she said she didn't have her notes. And Moses was the first time that he ever did devotional to the youth. Ever, even here. And I think Moses did a great job that night. And we're talking about Moses, each one of these we talk about how they've grown and stuff, going up, Dalen, going to the front. Jay Lee, Dalen did beat you. Him and Micaiah left like way before you did. Moses has come out so much. Going fishing with Daniel and Campbell, and I went with them to a boy that at first he wanted to stand back. He was standish off. I watched Moses go around high-fiving people the whole weekend and talking. I watched Micaiah talk to, I think, everybody on campus. And Deborah sitting there pulling them back in the whole time. But the whole time they worked together. The whole time they understood and they talked it. And when they left their small group, they got in their own group and talked about what each one of them learned in their small group together to build off from. Miss Cindy and I talked last year, and some of you guys are on, has been asked to be prayer partners or accountability partners for the youth. One of the things that was brought out to me, and I wrote this down in my Together book because it's amazing. Youth nowadays in church are dropping out really fast. A survey showed 85% of youth stays involved in church in an active role of a church when 4 or more people reaches out and stays in their life. We have a accountability partner, and I know Brother Dave, you're on it. I think you and Miss Linda, if I'm not mistaken, is on it. That's one of my biggest takeaways is we have a praying church for our kids. We have to make sure that they know this. And what I'm wanting, I talked to Miss Cindy before service, is I want to fire that back up again. And if you feel led, it doesn't matter if Brother Dave's got Campbell and you feel led to be Campbell's partner too. He can have two. Everybody can pray for him, but Brother Dave can probably talk about more about what he does. Just going by and telling him, hey man, I'm praying for you today. Because I'm telling you right now, it's in their face. When they picked up their phones, when they're at school, opened up their laptops because everything's online, it's in their face. The devil's in their face every day. He needs us. Jesus needs us to be in their face every day. I can only do so much, send out texts, love you. And they hear that from me all the time. But it's amazing. Even as adults, it's amazing. Even if I send a text at 7 o'clock in the morning to Miss Vicky, it's amazing to hear from somebody to let them know that you love them. That's what we need to start passing on to not only the adults, to even the little ones that's coming up, to each other. That's what I learned on the Together, and it's how important it is. So get with Miss Cindy or myself if you feel led to pray. And hey, I know you got Catherine, but even if you want to team up with one of the other girls, get up with them. Let them know, hey, I want to take part of this. I want to be accountability partner for one of the youth. We can use you. I can use accountability partners. I'm telling you now. Brother Dave, I tell you, we all in our lives could use accountability partners. It's important. This world, we talked about how it's tanking. We need to stand and unite and be together so we can have the future youth that's going to run the future church. We're responsible to train the future church, and they're responsible to train their future youth. Brother Dave, that's all I've got.